It was called Justice and Rights Movements, Let Them Lead the Way, and it was an interdisciplinary seminar, and it examined the theory and praxis of peace, civil, and human rights interventions as enacted primarily by young people in movements of social transformation.
What does it mean in the era of social media to think back to the history of social protest through marching?
So our idea was really to let our students know the ways in which people their age had impacted different social movements. Our course just happened to be during the time of the election. It became very, very important in terms of thinking about how do you deal with real change and how do you address it.
So there was really that kind of emotional element, I think,
Right.
was kind of out of the ordinary.
Right.
And we had this constant sort of theoretical
That's right.
and practical commingling back and forth.
And we had to really distinguish between peace, nonviolence, different movements, different ways of thinking about them, and then what tips, at what point do you start to say, wait, which methods are effective, which ones aren't? But also, she brought in a great guest,
Nitza Escalera, and she came in and talked about her personal journey and her, in a way, her intellectual journey to seeing the importance of peace studies and a peace museum and the kinds of work they do in the greater New York area.
We had Bill Caspary come as well. He's a professor at the Gallatin School, and he's done a lot of work with peace movements. He came and talked to our students and then shared resources for them. We were very fortunate that in this semester we had Reverend Jim Lawson, who was one of the founders of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, come gave a workshop on nonviolence resistance. He trained Martin Luther King. It was really comprehensive for our students to get a sense of the ways in which you can be involved. One of the texts that we decided that Joyce really liked was Marching on Washington.
This book, Marching on Washington.
And we thought, well, it makes sense. NYU has a site in Washington, D.C. It makes sense for us to go visit, for our students to get a sense of it, and also for us to let our students see the ways in which the narratives of different people had come together in Washington, D.C. So this text deals with the early march, the Women's Rights March, Coxey's March. It deals with civil rights. And so we thought this would be a really good place for us to go.
Michael got on the phone and was on there for 2 hours, and he got tickets to the Museum of African American
History and Culture, right.
And that was pretty extraordinary within the first 2 months of its opening. But for me also, I had never been to the Douglas home and museum, and that was extraordinary. Beside that, we had, Michael had found Ben's Chili Bowl, which is, again, culture played a very big piece in the course.
It was the only place that was open during the rebellions that were happening. It was the only place that stayed open for National Guard and people in the neighborhood to eat. It's a story of immigration and migration, too, as well as family that came from another place, and the children went off to school, but then they ended up coming back running the business because they got so plugged into this notion of community.
There was a man, who was, I would say, a man in his 70s from the community who came up and spoke for about 15 minutes and gave kind of an oral history,
She did.
which was really compelling. That kind of experience is something that students are not going to forget.